All right, welcome back to episode 5 of the Ultra Ascent podcast. If you're with us right now, we have all 3 episodes of the first 3 episodes are live right now on our YouTube channel. We're officially live.
What's up, dude?
How does
Big
that make you
election on
feel?
deck. No, I'm kidding.
Big election on deck. It's a wild time, but we are just not going to talk about that because,
Was it you that said that you feel that it's necessary for every presidential candidate to like complete an ultra marathon before running for office or 100
yes.
miles?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Someone did ask me that on, I think it was like a
What was
Instagram
that?
Ask Me Anything. And they said if I were president, what like law would I make? And
It's a
I
policy
said
to put in
something along the
place.
lines of like making every United States citizen run 100 miles.
Dang, that'd be intense. There'd have to be some stipulations there, but by any means necessary, I'd assume.
Yeah, by any means, it could be over the course of a day, a week, a month, but I think that would be a good push.
No, I honestly think it could be very beneficial for our country if each candidate for any office party had to run an ultra marathon before running and get that experience because when you're running these type of events that go for hours on end and push you to your limits both physically and mentally, I feel like you can get a lot out of it, and it puts you in circumstances that you don't get on a daily basis. And I think that's like why we love doing what we're doing, like what we do now, and why we're into this so much because of like how it can accelerate our growth so much. And I think that could be very beneficial, especially in times like this where um, I feel like degenerative behavior is almost peaking, and I feel it in myself at least. I mean, I'm addicted to my phone as it
Yeah.
is right now. So like going out there and doing some hard things, I think it could be beneficial for our presidential candidates. I think that'd be entertaining too if
Dude,
if they had a race for the if they had a race for
imagine,
the
yeah, imagine if like Western states decided who was the next president,
dude.
and both these two candidates had to run. We might never determine who our next president is.
That'd
uh,
be awesome.
yeah, I mean,
Any
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say anyway, just to get off this topic, but
Yeah,
I think it'd be hilarious. But how have you been since Calendar Club? I know that had just wrapped up these past few days. Um, how are you feeling? What did you learn from that? Did you gain anything? Did you anything stick out to you along the way? I know you've done the challenge quite a bit, but has it kind of kicked back in some consistency for you, or how's that feeling?
yeah. So I just completed my 14th month of Calendar Club, which I think this of all the months was my favorite because it was so the first time I did it was more of like, oh, this seems like the hardest challenge I could ever do.
Yeah.
And it was a sufferfest. And then a few years later, I did it for a full year, and that was like the goal. And then I completed that, and then I felt myself wanting to get back into a consistent rhythm. And so I chose Calendar Club because of the consistency that it brought. And the only difference between this one and the last like 12 months that I did, or yeah, the last time I did the 12 months, it wasn't the goal, it was the process towards other goals. And so there was less pressure, there was less like, I don't know, pressure around creating content around it, trying to like bring the concept to more people. For me, it was just like a month of this is what I'm utilizing to train for the other goals that I have. And I felt like I came alive in the month of October more so than any other month previous. Like just because it just like reminded me of how simple running could be and how there's nothing better than spending all day outside when you I don't know when you use your time appropriately. Like there was a Saturday what was it, the 26th, I believe it was. It was just like I left my house at 11 in the morning, 10:30, 11 in the morning, and I got back at like 6:30. I just spent all day outside going for a run, and it was one of the most enjoyable weekends, days that I had. And the two things that I took away from that month was consistency is, in my mind, the most important thing you can do. Like if I had to tell myself in 2019 when I was starting this journey, what would be the best thing I could do to get me to where I am now, faster, it would be consistent, run every single day. And a lot of people have issues with that. But to me, there's just like consistency. It is the thing that's going to take you to where you want to go much farther and much quicker than any other thing that you can do. Shoes, diet, strength work. Like if you're not doing the activity itself on a consistent basis, then it's like, what are you even doing? The other thing that really helped this month more than the past times that I did it was like utilizing this start right now mentality. I'm big at procrastinating, especially if it's like I'm staring down 5 or 6 or 7 hours of running. And I somehow think that if, let's say it's like 1 in the afternoon, I think that, oh, I'll take a nap, I'll get some food in me, I'll rest up, and I'll start at like 3 or 4. And it just I'm never less tired at 4 o'clock than I am at 1, and all I've done is set myself up to not get to bed until like 11:30 or midnight. That then sets the next. It just so I really took that approach of like start now, and I think I finished every single run except for in the 20s when I was really bad at that, and I made the point to switch over. I finished, 6:30, 7. Latest was like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And it was just like, I fell back in love with running in the month of October. So a lot of good takeaways, really happy with it.
Nice, dude. Yeah, as an
Yeah.
outsider looking in, it felt like very raw and wholesome and organic, and I don't know, it felt like you at your core, and it really felt like I was watching someone that just loved and enjoyed what they're doing, and it's just so casual. Like,
Yeah.
this challenge, guys, it's not easy. I mean, it's a huge commitment that you're taking on every day, mind you. Like we're both currently not employed right now, so I guess we have a bit more time on our hands to do it, but it still doesn't, like, there's still a huge commitment that you have to undertake no matter what. It's like going out for 5, 6 hours, 7 hours at a time. That's a lot to put on your plate and to put in front of you and to go after. So it was really cool to see you do that and complete that. And it's not easy. It's not a walk in the park, but almost for you at this point, it almost feels
It
like
has
it's like
become, yeah.
it's become like almost second nature, where you can just lay down the miles and go after it. Like, have you experienced from that any like pain or anything, like any injury wise? Like I feel like going back to back like that after a build up might lead to some overuse injuries, but is there anything that like comes up that like
Nothing.
spooks
Nothing
you?
ever comes up. And I'm not like pushing the pace ever. And I think
Mm-hmm. That's
that's
huge.
big
Yeah.
for me is, I'm running 11.5 minute miles, sometimes even slower. Um, and that for me is huge. Like I'm never pushing it where I feel exhausted physically or worn down physically after. So my next day, I'm waking up feeling fresh. And just to make a point, people will say, oh, it must be nice to not have a job or have all that time on your hands. I did this challenge for like 8 or 9 months while working a full time job. So whoever is sitting here listening and has an excuse,
Can suck it. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, not an excuse.
Yeah.
Um, and you're on your 5th week of training. How's that going?
It's going good. It's going really well. The first week I did about 50, a little over 50 miles. Let's see. I'm gonna pull up my Strava quick just so I can get some numbers for you. But on your on your point about running slower and not getting injured, and kind of just being able to sustain, I think that's something that I've really taken to heart. Even even when I just had begun my running journey as well, and that I never really take my easy days out of zone 2, which for my heart rate would be, I mean, technically it's probably like around 162 is the max, but I never really push my heart rate up in the like 145, 150 range. It's usually below that. So for me right now, that looks like most of my easy days would be around 9 minute to 8:30 pace, which for someone that wants, for someone looking in on the outside of that, that's a beginner runner or a spectator of the sport, like that in most cases, most races, like 5K, 10K distance, you're running a pace that's 4, 5 minutes faster than that at times. So my rationale is that um, to get the volume that you need in your training and at a sustainable effort, you can't exert yourself past like your zone 2, zone 3 every day because it'll eventually end up catching up with you. And I found that like I'm in a good spot mentally and physically when I like almost restrain a bit and take it a bit slower than even I feel is slow. So like some days like I'm out there running 12, 13, 14, 15-minute pace on the trails when like in reality for some of these races I might have to be going a little bit faster than that. I mean, for example, this is a good example, and that you can run slower to run faster. I know that I do have my speed days in there to supplement that and to get some leg turnover in. But while I was living out in Colorado, I was training for the Boston Marathon, and I ended up running the Boston Marathon this year in 2 hours and 43 minutes, which equates to about 6 minutes and 12 seconds per mile. And while I was out there in Colorado, I could probably count on my hands and my toes how many miles I did at that pace. So, say 10 or less miles I did at that pace while I was living out in Colorado, like led me to be able to somehow. I mean, this is getting a bit into conspiracy here because I'm not honestly sure I pulled it off, but like I was able to run that fast by building up my volume and not getting injured by being consistent with what I did. And I think that like
Do
with what you're doing now, I think it's smart that you're not going too quick or playing into the ego side where you want to impress people on Strava or on Instagram because you're doing these hero workouts or you're doing these hero runs that make it look like you are more fit than you are or you want to be someone that you're not. Like I've kind of taken that part away and been like I'm trusting the process, and then when I do these races or have these results, people are almost surprised like, "Oh, how he pulled this off." Like his training doesn't show this, but deep down you can trust it and know that, you're building something in there that's much bigger than what you're seeing on a daily basis and
do you
just
think
trusting in
do,
that.
do you think outside of PEDs, like living at elevation, or
No, I think
uh,
I think a big factor that really helps for me, especially, is the fact that I'm living at
yeah,
altitude, um, because with that you're able to acquire more red blood cells, which means that you're able to take in more oxygen at a time, which means that you can run that effort for a longer amount of time. So I do think that's a huge factor, and I'm glad you brought that up because
yeah?
I was living in Colorado at 5,000 some feet. Now I'm at 4,500, so I'm still at altitude, so I'm still getting those benefits. So I think a big part of it was me almost being unable to run my marathon pace and below
Yeah,
at
yeah.
altitude. So it almost made me
It
second guess
forced you to
me.
slow down.
Yes, it did that, and it made me second guess what I was actually capable of doing. I was like, am I this fit, or am I able to? My goal was like sub 245, and I was like, am I able to actually do this if I'm not able to do it in training? But I kind of trusted that the altitude would play a factor. But yes, with my training now, I'm about four weeks in. Um, my first week was let's see here,
What is
October.
this like? Would you say this is base building phase?
Yeah, this would be like the first 4 weeks. Coach Hayden Hawks, he titled it base building. So just getting back into things after the Grindstone 100. Um, Took a week or so off of running basically full stop. Just did about 4 miles that week. Coming off Grindstone, did a 33-mile week to build up a little bit more. In these last 4 weeks, I averaged probably like 55 to 60 miles and about 7 to 10,000 feet of vert. So not too much, not too little, almost my maintenance amount of mileage that I would run consistently this year. I think this year I've averaged about 50 to 60 miles per week. So that felt comfortable with me getting to right off the bat. And with that, now this next 4 week segment, Hayden put on the schedule. It's called Real Speed. So looking at some of the workouts I have, I think we're changing some things up with different paces, different intervals, fartleks where you're going fast for a minute, slow for a minute, fast for 2 minutes, slow for 2 minutes, stuff like that to kind of get my legs turning over. Because with this Black Canyon 100K race, it's a runner's race. It's not one where you're going to be hiking at all. You're probably going to be running every step. And the people that are best suited for this race are able to run fast for a very long time. So right now we're kind of working on that turnover and being able to sustain some efforts that I should be comfortable with come February. So,
And is it strategically placed during this time for a reason instead of later on in the training? Like, why right now?
I think right now is a good time to get a little bit of speed in, but not get too specific with, I guess, the terrain and the some of the speeds I will be running. I haven't talked to him much about it since he's been in Ecuador so far, so we're gonna have a call like later this week. But as it goes on, I think this will lead me to have a better running economy and be more efficient for the peak weeks that are to come, where I'm going to be running a lot of mileage at a pace that will be a little bit closer to Black Canyon. And I think to be where I want to be at for Black Canyon, which is, I'd say, like top 20, I think would be pretty good for me and where I'm at in my running career. Last year, I think most of the top 20 were signed on professional contracts. So I think that would lead me to be around, 8 to 8:30-ish minutes per mile for 62 miles on trail.
Dang.
Which means I kind of need to get comfortable running faster than that in some of my training on the workout days. I'll still be taking my easy days slower per usual, but kind of like almost like a marathon block on steroids. I'll have to get my zone 2 pace a little bit faster where I'm comfortable running that for a long period of time, because being able to sustain that along with factoring in the stops for aid stations, like that bleeds time there too, so you kind of have to factor that in. Bottle swapping, all that, those logistics. So yeah, yeah.
I was curious, how do you, like, when you think about going into this race, do you think about just trying to aim to position yourself to finish 20th or around that area because that's what you deem as successful for where you're at in this current stage? Or, like, is there a world where you're thinking, hey, you have nothing to lose, why not, shoot for podium or shoot for first, where there's a good possibility where you blow up and you end up in like 50th or 60th? Like, do you think about it like that?
Yeah, I do, and I probably will more closer to the race when I have a better understanding of where my fitness is. But in this current state, I have a pretty good understanding of like what's like possible to get to within the next 8 weeks or whatever it is. Or no,
Yeah.
It's like 14 weeks, something like that. And I know that currently I don't have the fitness that's required to be in that top 5 contention based on previous times. And things change. You know, but relatively, like, the times stay the same for this race, and things are only getting more competitive and fast. So to keep up with that, like I feel like given where I'm at now and where I think I could be in the next 14 weeks with a good training block, good consistency, not getting injured, factoring in all those things, making sure I'm on top of my sleep, all that, I think a good spot based on previous times for me would be that top 20 range. And like if things click and things go well that day, like in a race, I'm not afraid to send it out there. Like I wouldn't be afraid to like show up and blow up if it meant like I was gonna go take a shot at it.
Right,
If I if
right.
I if I if I
You
realistically
genuinely believed it.
believed it, yes.
Yeah.
Because
Based
I
on
don't
the
want to do
evidence.
something that's like irrational and that
Right.
has no almost like data behind. Because I mean, although I kind of did that at Boston, this is a whole different ball game where it's 62 miles. It's a
Yeah.
long race. Like you kind of almost have to play it a little bit smarter at the beginning, just because it's an ultra, and then on top of that, you kind of have to know your fitness to be able to act on it.
Mm.
When Yeah, so when the gun goes off, like I plan to like be in that lead pack of whatever it ends up being, like 20 to 25, like it usually is, where guys are going out quick. But I don't want to like pull it all out there and
Right.
have it all come back to me right away. So yeah, when I look at like where I want to place, it's like it's not because I think that's like oh I'm gonna get a gold star for that, like that would look good for some people. It's just like I kind of have an idea of what I'm capable of right now and what I think could work out in the end. But
Yeah.
who knows what could happen in this amount of time. I mean, I you know given my trajectory with where my running's at now and where it started, I think I don't think I would rule out me like being a competitor for the top 10, if all things went well and I was able to, have a good block at altitude, because I don't believe that the course, um, it either starts at altitude or ends at altitude, but it's not at altitude the entire time. So um, that plays big for me because I'm especially not that good at racing or running fast at altitude at this point. I think my
Yes.
asthma
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
asthma might play into that, but yeah, yeah. So I guess with that, with the start of this new real speed block, I'm supposed to be technically like off today or on an easy hour run,
But you're not.
but I'm not, because Natalie and I were going to this group run with Women of the Wasatch, but today they're opening up to the community, which means males can come. So Courtney DeWalter will be there with Kodiak Cakes, which is awesome. And I mean, we'd mentioned in the first episode, she's been someone I've looked up to since literally my day one of learning about ultra running, and someone that I've kind of grown to, I won't say idolize, but like look to in terms of greatness in the sport and what like some of the things I hope to accomplish when it's said and done. It's almost like she accomplishes something great every single time she shows up to a start line, almost resets what's possible. And I think it's really cool that she'll be there tonight, and hopefully I'll get a chance to say a few words to her before she gets swarmed by probably the hundreds of people that
Yeah.
want to do the same. But I guess the only time I've interacted with her in the past was this year at Hard Rock 100 in Colorado in the San Juan Mountains. Natalie and I were going to volunteer at an aid station later in the day in the race, like the afternoon to night shift, and we were able to watch and spectate a little bit beforehand. And I was wearing my Courtney DeWalter shirt that almost shows like the elevation profiles of Hard Rock, Western States, and UTMB to like almost memorialize her achievement last year of winning all three. And
Yeah.
when she ran by when we were spectating, she like pointed at it and smiled. I thought it was almost like a fanboy moment where I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, she noticed me. Like I didn't have to like be like blocking her way or,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So I thought that was cool, and I think this event will bring out a lot of people that love the ultra running community and trails. So I think it'll be awesome.
And you said you were gonna get her on the next pod, right?
Dude, that would be the dream. That would be so cool. I think we have to put a few more out there, but
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll say that Courtney DeWalter's in the hopper
Yeah, she.
for anyone watching. I'll try to pull some strings if I can, but it's tough because reaching out like that for someone that
Yeah,
big,
no.
it's like you almost have to. I don't know. I feel like you have to do things. You have to almost establish yourself a bit more
Yeah,
to do that.
definitely,
Um,
definitely.
but I think it would be a cool like first guess or first like set the bar like obscenely high. But yeah. Anyway,
Were there
um,
uh, were there races in Moab this weekend? Were you able to go to any of those?
yes, we wanted to go down there and spectate some of our friends. John Quigley, one of my buddies from back in Colorado and Minnesota, and then Ashley Nelson. She ran the half marathon, and then a few other people I knew running down there. We wanted to go spectate that because um, we didn't end up getting down there, but the half marathon in Moab was the USA Track and Field half marathon national championships. So trail national championships. So there's a lot of competition, a lot of guys and girls going for top 10 positions because it was that competitive, which is a huge achievement. And then there's a marathon as well. And my buddy John ended up switching races, I think, either the day of or the day before from the half marathon to the marathon. I'm not sure what his rationale was. I think it might be because he's doing the JFK 50 mile later this month and wanted to get a big training run beforehand,
Mm.
and he ended up taking home the dub in the marathon. I'm not sure, I think his time was around like 3:26 or so, and it was trail and had elevation at altitude in Moab. So this is a guy that at Boston this year, I believe he ran 2:24, and in his workouts,
Jeez.
in Colorado, I think if you calculated some of his workouts and crunch some of the numbers, like it'd be easy to say that he has the potential and can realistically run a 2:18, 2:17 marathon relatively soon. I'd say within the next 6 months, he's going to run Boston again. So I would say that that's probably on his horizon. So he's a name to look out for. Really awesome dude. He has the talent to be, I'd say, a professional runner in some realm or another. But it's almost like he doesn't feel like he would be providing the world with enough value doing that. So he's like very invested in his like environmental engineering job where he's on the scene of these like events where there was spillage or
Mm.
something wrong with people dumping things here, and he's like in charge of like the cleanup and organizing different things like that. So I think he likes to make his impact through that better. But on the other hand, like he's also one of the most dedicated and most committed um, like runners I've ever known and met. Like he's almost like addicted to it and obsessed with it, like at the level like we are, probably more so.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he
yeah.
consistently runs over 100 miles a week, and
Jeez.
for anybody like at the paces that he's running it or in just any pace in general, like I think that's like I think that's really cool. So he ran that.
He's doing the JFK as
And he's doing the
well.
JFK 50 miler, which for all the listeners out there, that's a race that takes place in late November each year. It's one of the oldest ultra marathons, if not the oldest ultra
I think it.
marathon
I think it's the oldest. Yeah.
in the United States, and I believe that 10 to 12 miles of it take place on the Appalachian Trail, Appalachian,
Mm.
if you say it that way. So trail runners usually like to show up to it and test their speed because it involves a little bit of trail, but it also involves 40 or so miles on the road. So you have to be road tested as well for that distance. So it gets a huge amount of eyeballs on it. It's one of the biggest, bigger road ultra running races in the country. A lot of folks around the world know about it. And this year in particular, it's got a live stream, so even more eyeballs and former people that have been involved and have raced it and have won. My coach Hayden Hawks, he's got the course record back in 2020 during COVID times.
Really?
He ran 5:18, which is a blistering 6:22 pace. So that's insane. and the women's course record is 6:05 in 2022. Sarah Beal, I know she's had a handful of good performances there, but other runners that have ran this race: Jim Walmsley, Seth Ruling, Adam Peterman, Camille Herron, Jen Lichter, and Zach Miller, and a good amount of these people.
It's a stacked list.
It's a stacked list. A good amount of these people have gotten sponsorship opportunities, like following podium performances. I know that Seth Ruin in particular, I think North Face basically asked him immediately after to sign.
Really?
He's been with them for the past 5 years, and he also just won JFK last year as well. So it always brings out a lot of competition, and a lot of brands are watching this one because it shows that, like, it shows almost who, can run the fastest at that distance while still having a bit of trail capability. So yeah, really interesting to see that. I'm excited to see what John does there.
Are you going to go out to watch it at all?
I wish. It would be awesome. I don't think it's really that good for spectators or crewing or pacing. I don't think you can pace actually in that race, but if it were a bit more suited for that, I would think about it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he does. I know it's going to bring out a lot of professional athletes and people that are seeking to run fast in the winter as things are kind of rolling down for a lot of runners in this off-season type realm. But I guess with that, coming up, we got 2025 on the horizon, and quite a few things you got to get planned and lined up. I know that for me in particular, I've already signed up for the Black Canyon 100K in February. I just signed up for the Twisted Fork 68K.
Oh, I saw that.
In Park City, Utah, which is
that Finn's race?
Yeah, and Jules Campanelli, their race up in Park City. It was a former race that had been going on from like 2018 to 2020. They shut down because I think they lost a permit. Because permitting in the whole race realm is tough to get in general. So Finn's bringing that back, bringing a race to Park City, and that's like 20 minutes from my doorstep.
Yeah.
So excited to run that one local. I won't have to travel for it. I can wake up in my own bed.
What time of year is that?
It is June 14th, so beginning of summer here in the Wasatch. It's going to bring out a lot of competition. There's a 68K, a 30K, and a 15K. It looks like the 30K is the most stacked so far, which is about 18 to 19 miles. It seems like there's already 5 or 6 professional signed runners racing that one. And I believe there's at least 2 to 3 that have already signed up for the 68K. So it's going to bring out some pros and a lot of people that want to support Finn in general and just the local trail running community here in the Wasatch. So that's cool. And then coming up shortly in January, I'm going to have to sign up for UTMB, which is going to be a huge commitment in itself.
Yeah.
But I also put in for the lottery last week for both Hard Rock and Western States. So those lotteries are going to be drawn, I believe, on December 6th, December 7th. I'll have one lottery ticket in each because it's my first year being eligible for each based on the races I ran this year. For Western States, I got a ticket from the Never Summer 100K and from Grindstone because Grindstone was a triple qualifier. You could get tickets for UTMB, Hard Rock, and Western States. I think there's only one in the States that had that, so that's kind of what motivated me to run that one. And then Hard Rock, I got the qualifier through Grindstone. So I'm excited.
What is when you say qualifier, do you have to podium? Do you just have to finish that race? What does that look like?
Yeah, so if you're going to qualify for a Western States or a Hard Rock, for example, they have a certain list of races that can qualify you, but then there's a certain amount of time that you have to finish in. I'm not sure if it's the race's specific cutoff time, but it's pretty generous. I don't think you don't have to set any course records or finish within the top 10, top 20 people. I think it's pretty generous if it's not the course's basic cutoff time in general. So say for my Grindstone race, I think it might have been 36 hours or 30 hours that you had to finish within to be able to qualify for Western States.
So for someone like me, because Hard Rock, Western States, those races are definitely races I want to start putting my name in the hat for, because I know it's
Yeah.
going to take years to do with the lottery system. But like, I have no doubt that what I've done so far in running would grant me, I don't
The
know,
ability to,
immunity to be able to sign up.
yeah,
But when I was trying to put my name in the hat for Hard Rock, and it gives you the list, and you have to select a race from that
yeah,
list.
yeah.
So do you
So
know anything about that? Or I mean, I haven't done a research on my end. I was curious to know if you knew anything.
yes, so on both the Hard Rock and Western States library or websites, they have like a specific set of, for Hard Rock, it's probably like 30 races in the world, and then for Western States, it's probably about the same, where it's almost like their way of vetting you and almost helping to support other races because they
Yeah.
know how badly people want to run at Western States and Hard Rock. So if you are a qualifier for Western States or if you're a qualifier for Hard Rock as that race, like you almost automatically get more people to sign up because of that fact.
Right.
So
Right.
it's almost like redistributing like some
For
of
sure.
the good things about Western States and Hard Rock that kind of like bring people
Trickle down.
there. Trickle
Yep.
down. Yeah, it almost trickles down. So for Hard Rock, like the ones that are qualifiers for that one are usually in the United States, like some of the harder 100 milers and 200 milers that you'll race or come across, just because they want to vet you there and make sure that you're able to handle yourself in an environment that could be similar to Hard Rocks, when you can't necessarily replicate it entirely because it is, most of it takes place above 10,000 feet. You're in the high alpine, you know, midsummer in Colorado. It could be thunderstorm, hail, snow. Like you can't replicate that, but you can replicate like the time on feet and the elevation gain to an extent. So, like a few examples of like what would qualify you for Hard Rock is running the High Lonesome in Colorado. That's a 100 mile race in the Rockies. Cascade Crest, I believe that one is in Oregon. UTMB, obviously. Um, the Wasatch Front, the Bear 100, those are both in the mountains of Utah. So mountainous races basically for Hard Rock, and then for Western States it's a bit more lenient
Mm.
there, where Western States is not as mountainous of a race. It's more of a runnable race. So as long as you're getting in that 100K to 100 mile distance, um, there's a lot more races that are opened up for Western States. But yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that you kind of have to race your way in no matter what to
Yeah.
these races. But with the demand
Yeah.
that they've seen, it would be impossible for them to not have some liabilities out there
For
if there
sure.
was no barrier to entry.
For sure. It
And
just it just sucks because it's like, if I had a disposable income to be able to spend on, like, I'm looking at this list. It's like, and I would love to go do these races, but they're all so freaking expensive.
yes,
And that's the only thing holding me back. That's why I do all these self-created runs. Is like they're cheap.
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, and it's
yeah,
a big commitment as is, just to run a 100 miler in general. And with these ones, it's like almost more so because you have to prepare more.
you got
Um, you're
travel.
you're gonna travel. You're gonna end up spending more in general just to be, have as much as you need to be able to get the job done. And they're usually in, you know, places that are a bit more remote, so that it involves more traveling. But yeah, I know that Bighorn 100 is a gnarly one as well. Like these races are just ones that they want to see if you can stick it out and I guess help out other ultras along the way. So I know with the odds of me getting in Hard Rock are super low, so I'm not really banking on it. And I really hope I don't get into Western States or Hard Rock. I'm saying that right now because I want to be able to run Twisted Fork without thinking about Western States, and I also
Mm,
want to be able to run hard or want to be able to run good at UTMB without thinking about Hard Rock and Western States. But the way that this system works, it almost forces you to put your, play your hand as soon as you can, because there's some people in these lotteries in both Hard Rock and Western States that haven't got their ticket pulled for 8 to 10 years, and like each year, so say this year I have one ticket in both Hard Rock and Western States. I think for both lotteries, it doubles the next time you qualify for it. So like say next year I'll be eligible because I run UTMB next year, for the year after for 2026. I'll be able to run Hard Rock again, and that means I'll have two tickets. And I run another race, say I run Cruel Jewel 100 in 2026. That means I'll be able to qualify again. That means I have four tickets. So it just exponentially doubles
Yeah.
more, not exponentially, but it just doubles each year. So there's people with like 240 tickets at this point that still haven't been pulled because there's just an influx of more people each year, and the pot gets bigger.
Do you think that it's completely random?
Mm,
Like, you don't think that this is where my thought has always gone. If they want someone in that race, they're gonna get them in that race.
yeah, and I think that that's one thing where like you can almost earn your way in a way where
Through
it's
like a
almost,
sponsored, like
yeah, there
there
are
might be a
those.
sponsor that has a certain number of
Oh, there
tickets they
is.
can give out. Yeah.
There is, yes. There's also those ways to get in too. So it's not like just the lottery. That's why I'm starting to get myself into not just to compete, but I'm also getting myself into these golden ticket races, which is Black Canyon,
Yep.
where the top three males and females automatically get in to Western States, just like I did at Grindstone this year, where I got third there. That automatically granted me access into UTMB. The nice thing with Aravaipa, the race organization that puts together Black Canyon and a whole slew of other races in the U.S., is that if you win a golden ticket at their race, they'll pay for your entry into Western States, which is like $450, which is huge.
Wow.
Like so, they're super generous in that, and like I don't think a lot of races would do that. I think it's just that the organization, they've built themselves up to a point where they're able to do that. But yeah, so the goals next year are those three as of now. I was potentially looking at mixing in the Gorge Waterfalls 100K in April, and that's because it falls in between a good time between um, Black Canyon and Twisted Fork, and it allows me enough time in between both to train for all three, while still getting some racing under my legs. And this year especially, not just with how well it's coordinated and organized in the past, but this year especially, it's going to be absurdly competitive because it is the way for anyone that wants to run on the long trail, mountain ultra team at Worlds this year. So I think it's supposed to be every 2 years. There's a World Trail Running Championship as well. There's so many circuits in trail running and ultra running, so bear with us, guys. Like we're like to navigate this like competitive like scene in ultras, and to almost make your path in ultras, you kind of have to play all these different games and circuits to almost show up where everyone else is showing up. So
Yeah.
with this one, like Gorge Waterfalls, they won the bid. Like they put a bid in to submit to like be the host of this qualifier where the top two males and females at this race qualify for themselves for next September's running of the World Ultra Trail Championships, where if you say you got first or second at Gorge, you would be eligible to run for Team USA at the Worlds. So that's like something that I would be interested in because I want to represent the Stars and Stripes one day. I think it'd be super cool to put your country on your chest and to do that. But it's gonna be ultra competitive. I know this one in particular has been controversial because when it was announced, people expected the qualifier for this this mountain ultra champs, the long trail version at least, which means it's 50 plus miles, to have a race that matched up more with the championship. So, for example, the Gorge Waterfalls is 62 miles and 11K of vert, and you probably won't be walking a step if you're going to finish one or two. Jim Walmsley's won this one. I think he has the course record. Vincent Bouillard, who won UTMB this past year, he won like 2 years ago. It's a lot of elites show up and run here, and like the course record is like about 8:30. So you're running the whole thing, and in contrast, the World Ultra Trail Championship is about 50 miles and 18K of vert and technical as all get out allegedly. So the people that qualify at this one might not necessarily be the best fit for the role at the World Ultra Champs. So there's been some kickback from some of the more mountain athletes in the sport that said like, we need to readdress this. We need to change this bidding process up. Like they don't doubt that, Gorge Waterfalls will be a great race because it's put on by Daybreak Racing and Free Trail and Dylan Bowman, and like the organization is good. All the other like extras are awesome at the race, but is it conducive to getting the best runner for the Worlds? That's the question.
Yeah.
Where I'm kind of like thinking to myself, like, say by a 1% less, probably 1% chance I show up here, I win this thing. Like, am I suited enough to even put on the Team USA singlet and run at a race that's 50 miles and 18K of vert? I don't know. Like, I don't think I am at this point in my career. And looking at this list of people that have signed up, a lot of the guys are the runners, the fast guys that aren't necessarily as proven in the mountains. And it's almost like these guys can almost snipe these spots, or these girls could almost snipe these spots and take these spots for Team USA when they're not maybe as cut out for that type of race, which is just interesting to me. And something like for potential elite athletes and for potential professional athletes to think about if you're gonna put yourself in that hat, because as someone I would consider myself, in most cases I want to be selfless. Like I wouldn't want to like take that spot as like a elite almost marathoner, because you can be
Right.
an elite marathoner here almost and race it and go fast, and then you are basically stuck with deciding whether or not you want to run a race that's total opposite of that, which is interesting. But I digress, and it's just one of the things that I've been thinking about for April and that time period. There's a few other races, but money's also a factor. So that's one thing to
Yeah.
consider too, that Natalie and I have kind of been discussing. But
Well,
do you have any
well,
ideas?
yeah, I was
or-
for New Year's Eve.
Uh-oh.
We haven't even talked about that.
Yeah,
We
haven't.
we gotta put something on the schedule.
Yes.
Where we
And
could, yeah.
yes, I
What-
think that one will be interesting, because Natalie wants to come home for Christmas, for sure. Like we are coming
Okay.
home for Christmas, which allows a time for us to potentially, if you're going to be in Minnesota for Christmas, I don't know if you're going to be in Chicago or what, but that would allow us, a time where we'd be there almost. We'd just be there together. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
like it wouldn't take an extra flight either way.
Right.
But I don't know the extent of when we're going to be there because of my job situation and maybe not having that time to stay as long as I'd like. So we might have to we might have to come back to that one.
Okay.
But
I mean, other than yeah, go ahead.
what were you saying?
We'll have to figure out what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
Other than that though, I got Arrowhead in January. I've got I haven't signed up for it yet, but I'm like to go back to Wausau to defend my title there. And then I think I'm gonna those are the only two races that I've identified, but I think I'd like to go a little bit heavier in the last person standing events. Instead of just doing one, trying to do 3 or 4 just to see what happens.
Okay. I like that a lot. Would you try to Um, I know I was looking at when I was kind of getting into ultras more. I wanted to almost get into backyards first, and then get into
Mm.
more like racing style racing. And that's why I still have like an entry to the Elm Creek Backyard Ultra that I haven't used for. Like, I've just
Yeah,
been delaying for the past 2 or 3 years. But I think if you were going to go that route, like, would you be interested in at some point competing at like the Bigs World Championships where
for
the
sure.
okay, so
For
then
sure.
that would mean that you would, if you didn't want to basically start from the bottom, you'd probably want to immediately race after Wausau. You'd immediately want to race at one of their
Elm
like
Creek.
silver. No, you'd want to Elm Creek might be bronze, but like there's like silver races, gold races, and bronze races. And like bronze gives you an automatic qualifier to the silver, and like silver are races that you can like sign up for, I think. And then silver gets you an automatic qualifier. If you win silver, like there's some other things with that too. Like that's why like ultra running trail is pretty complicated because there's so many different like routes and paths you can take and weave in and weave out and qualify for certain things that like you kind of have to be on top of your crap to navigate it and to compete at a high level because otherwise you might just be left out just because you don't know any better.
I mean, you're giving me good information because I didn't even know that there was silver and bronze. How do you even look for something like that?
I think you would go on backyardultra.com. I think that's the website, or backyardsomething.com. Um, and like I knew that Elm Creek was a bronze race that would automatically qualify me, and like almost, I think I'd get a paid entry, maybe, into the silver race. That's like a random one in Michigan, but I could also just sign up for the one in Michigan and almost bypass that, but it would be a lot more competitive than the one in Elm Creek because people know that it's a silver one and it almost skips a step in the
Yeah.
process, which is interesting. But like you would have to put more on the line in one effort um, to get there because I know that the guy that like has been defending that one for a while, or maybe it was the past 2 or 3 years, he had been. I think it was at least 2 days for sure.
The one
Um,
at
it was like
the
in
one in
Michigan.
Michigan?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in Michigan. I could be wrong, but whatever one that Elm Creek like funnels into, like because there's like almost like a bracket that like it funnels people into to qualify. Um, but another way for you to qualify for that would be an at-large bid, which also would be reliant on another person going this distance. But like Harvey Lewis, he hasn't technically won like I don't think he won the USA one this year. He didn't. It was another fella. Um, but since he had so many laps at a prior late race, he got an at-large bid um, to compete at like the next individual championship. So say like at Wasa, you and another guy go for 4 days, but
Yeah.
it's not one that qualifies you directly to the bigs. Like you could potentially get in because you guys went that far together and you had more laps than someone else at another race.
Mm.
Um, where they're like in the at-large chain. So it's complicated, but it's like a rabbit. It's like another rabbit hole in backyards
Dude,
that I started to go down, but I was like, I don't know if this is for me right now. Like I might want to put this one on a shelf for a bit and come back to it. Because I just don't know if I have that dog in me yet. But
I love how you know more about this than I do.
dude, there's a lot that goes into it if you want to, be at the competitive ones because these people are crazy. Like it's like if people don't understand what a backyard ultra is, it's you do 4.167 miles every hour on the hour, and they're usually ran on a looped course, which makes it easier for you to come back to the same spot and have your crew and everything you need there, like food. It's like almost your like aid station every 4.16 miles. So on average, people usually complete them, in about 52 to 54 minutes, which gives them about 6 to 8 minutes to come back and almost resettle, get all the food they need, change clothes if they're sopping wet or something, maybe nap for 2 minutes. and then right on the hour you have to be back at the start line and start again. And the record right now is like getting close to 5 days where people are
Yeah,
doing this for
110
5 days
hours.
straight. Like that is absurd. The sleep deprivation that we had when we did our backyard ultra back in January of 2022 or 2023, um, like for me it was absurd. Like I couldn't like for 3 hours straight I was hallucinating. I was like literally seeing things 10 to 15 yards ahead of me that weren't there, non-existent. I couldn't even imagine doing this for 4 days more. Like that's the things that like Harvey Lewis and those freaks are doing right now. So that's sounds like what Dowdle you're interested in too, which
That
is
is definitely up my alley.
yeah. And I know that you've
Cause it,
you've done like 4, 5 of them now. Like I mean, counting
yeah,
ours.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
I've
mean,
done 3 at Wausau, one in Duluth. I did the one with you.
yeah.
And then the first one I ever did, which was the hardest one I ever did, was I did it on New Year's Eve. And I started at 9 p.m. and I went around Lake Makaska and I just tried to see how long I could go. So I did it solo.
Yeah.
And it sucked because it was like immediately when I started, I had already lost because I wasn't competing against anyone.
Yeah.
So the only like I was in charge of stopping.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was horrible. I lasted till sunrise. I went for 11 hours and it was the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um, but I guess with that, what was that funny thing that you had been going, or what was it that like a guy basically showed up and he just basically had like a chair or something, or he didn't have like, what was the story where like there's a guy that just he didn't say a word, or you were telling me it when we were running our own adventure where there's an ultra where a guy just basically like said like he's not stopping, or oh he's like maybe until it's done or until it's over. There's some line where he had it was like just badass. Where like you asked him like how far do you plan on going? He's like as far as I need to go or something like that.
yeah,
And
I don't
I was
know.
like that is like the intimidation factor and tactics that you can play in that race are real. Like
Yeah.
you kind of get down your cadence of when you're walking, when you're running. I know that there's a tactic where people wear waist like headlights instead of their
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
their
They're
heads.
like
So
on
like
HUD.
when they're turning to like look back and see if someone's behind them, see if they're like still hanging on.
Mm,
Like then the person behind them doesn't think that they're second guessing themselves. So it's like you can almost check on them without them knowing, which is like a
mind
tactic.
games.
I know. I was just when I was looking into it, it's like a whole different realm. But you're almost like not racing anybody. It's like survival and just keeping one foot in front of the other and not quitting and not backing down and like continuing to make sure that you stay on top of your nutrition and almost have it like regimented where like you don't take any any time off. It's like you kind of have like a little schedule you go through. Your crew is almost dialed in to where like you're coming back, they know what you want to eat, like they take off your socks for you, change anything you need. Like it's almost like a well-oiled machine at a certain point, which is pretty cool. And like I don't know, I think that's a cool part of it.
Yeah, I think the backyards are my favorite for a lot of reasons, but I think I find the most success at them because they're Lucy's favorite race as well. And she's my crew chief.
She
She
is
takes care of me.
good. She is
And
good.
she just likes the fact that she can stay in one place and not have to
Mm,
worry about traveling to different locations along the course. She knows that once we're set up, that's where we're staying. And she knows the rhythm because I'm extremely consistent in the times that
yeah.
I'm coming in. It's 52 minutes. Sometimes at 54, sometimes it's 48, depending
Hmm.
on if I'm going to take a nap or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just consistent and there's a rhythm that not only I can get in, but she can get in as well. And I think that's why I find success and love them so much because we both enjoy the process that the backyard offers.
Yeah, it's like a dance you can almost do with
Yeah.
with your crew that has like it has some anxiety there, but like less so than like having to jump places, having to move things. It's like
Right. It's like the time. Like you need to get this person
Yeah.
in and out.
Once they get you in and out, like they can prepare the next
Yes.
45, 50 minutes for the next time. And it's almost like they have time to chill and do
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
which is cool. So I guess with that, that's like another rabbit hole you can go down if you want to choose your own adventure and
Dude,
just do ultra running.
I'm
and
gonna go
trail
down.
racing.
You welcomed me into a whole rabbit hole that I'm about to go down this entire day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Sweet. Do you want to talk about potential sponsorships, anything that we've kind of had going on, or anything that you've in particular had going on? Where do you want to
I
start
mean,
with that?
we can dive into it a little bit, or we can save it for next week.
Let's save it.
Yeah, we can save these last two for next week.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, we've
Cool.
got a few things on the agenda for next episode. Episode 6, we got as of now just current partnerships, where we're at with those. Potential. If there's a brand that's potentially sending me something that it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and then just talk about like who we like will choose to associate with when that time comes, and who we currently are associated with, and like why we're doing that, and how we're sticking true to who we are and not kind of selling out in a sense. I think that's really important to both of us, and kind of sticking true to our values and our morals. And if things don't align, we don't want to portray someone we're not. I think that's like the core of who we are is like wearing our heart on our sleeve. And in this day and age, like everyone's being influenced to an extent, so like we'd like to do our part and have brands that we partner with that align most. So there's that. And then I want to talk about some other things that we're doing outside of running actively as well, that almost supplement not only our running in a way, but just our life in general, and how that could be beneficial to the runner, or the everyday person that is just getting after it. So really appreciate everyone for listening to this 5th episode. And if you listen to all of them so far, shoot us a message and let us know like how you feel about the episodes, anything we could do better, anything you'd like us to talk about, discuss, because we're pretty open when it comes to topics. And realistically, when we get on here, it's like we have like a framework of 5 to 6 things we want to talk about, but it doesn't matter really which way we go. It's like we want to make sure that we're providing as much value as possible, and kind of figure out where our audience is at, and almost learn together and inform you as we go too, because I know that there's quite a few listeners that aren't familiar with this space and wanting to get into it. And like you, like when we were talking about like the Western States Hard Rock backyard, like the lottery, all that stuff, like that's confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Dude, even the professionals in the sport that do this for a living, I'm telling you, they're confused about it and they don't know. I've seen it on like forums. I've seen it on comment sections. Like a lot of the professionals didn't know that in UTMB now, like say you get top 3 at UTMB itself, you automatically qualify for the next year. But for some reason, between that next year and now, you have to run another UTMB race.
What?
Like you just have to run one. You could finish like dead last, but you have to finish it and like run it, which is interesting. Like it's like a whole another thing that like, people didn't know about. So like this guy that got second in OCC this year, he just ran like another race, a few months ago, just to do it. And like people don't necessarily have the passion for it or want to race it, but it's like they have to do it to get back. Which is like,
oh my gosh,
it's funny. Which is like running. Your reward in running and racing now is like almost more running and racing. Like, which is I think hilarious and almost like caters to the type of people that running are, because we usually are the people that like bite off more than we can chew, and it's almost like keep continuing to just like feed us with more than we can handle, but we're almost I don't know if it's our egos or just like what we like and want to do, but like it almost puts you in this vicious cycle where you're just stuck in it. And like, so for Western states, it's like, oh, you won Javelina, you got your golden ticket. You're rewarded with having to run Western states now. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
which is funny.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. And if you guys have any comments or any recommendations, let us know. But episode 6, what's the date today? We got November 4th,
4th.
2024. 6 episodes deep already. Let's go.
Let's go. It also kind of feels like a money grab though too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, it's a business
Like-
for sure. Yeah, yeah. It's a money grab. But it's also